Okay, we're coming down to the wire here. We're making more of these components. So as you can see, we've got the actuator. This is a piece of geometry that I was working on the saws I have, and you know, I did this with the hole saw. I did this with a band saw. I've got to sand it out. I've got these pieces now. They have to be mounted to this plate. I've got this bearing here that I made. So that works really well. And I've decided to change the design a bit. So here on my CAD, you can see that what I want to do is I want to have this actuator actuating this ring, and these connection rods will then in turn pull that out. So I've got to make these little universal joints so it works just right. And the way it's supposed to work is this way. When this ring turns like this, it pulls on the connecting rods and it opens up like that. And then of course there's the orb, and the orb will fall down. It'll be on a stand, and what I've yet to design is the mechanism that takes the ball and puts it back. So I'm working on this electronic design. It's very, very simple. This is just a very simple actuator. It's just a 12 volt that goes up and down or in and out. And that's where we are. So today, I'm going to be making these little knuckles, and that's going to be fun, and the connecting rods. In order to make this design work, I'm going to manually make these little connecting rods. I can purchase them, but you know, the whole point of this is to have fun and do it in the wood shop. So this little knuckle is something I now have to make, and that is the knuckle. And of course, the dimensions of it are very simple. It's 0.5 by 0.5 by 0.5 with these little wooden dowels sticking out of it. So now, in order to make that, it's really nice to have the right tools. And so if I try to do it on a full-size table saw, I'll probably lose my hand. And so what I've done is I went to good old internet and found a table saw that's really small. So here's this table saw. I have never used it. I'm assuming it's going to work very well though. And here's the little angle guide, so I could do angles on there like that. And then the blade is really small. And you could hurt yourself with a small tool also, you know, but you still got to be really careful. But you know, if I try to cut something like that on my full-size table saw with the 220, it probably is a bad idea. So this little table saw, never used it before, so we're going to find out. So we're ready to create our little knuckles. These are little 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch cubes. And we have this little table saw. Now, when we use a large table saw and we have small pieces, we use a stick like this to push things through. So what we did was we made a small one, and that's what we're going to use to do these cuts. So here I've got a piece that I already cut 1/2 inch, and I'm going to turn this little doodad on, and we're going to make 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch cubes. So this works real well. It's the right tool for the job. Okay, and now we have to make the other cut, the cut this way. So we need 6 of these for the design, and I'm really glad that we have this tiny little table saw, because it really does a nice job. Uh-oh, you see? There you go. You have the perfect cut. And there we go. So that is a perfect 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch cube. And if I didn't have this little table saw, I'd probably have to do it on the band saw, but it wouldn't come out as good as that. So cool, now that we've seen that little table saw works, and we've created one of the knuckles. We still haven't drilled the holes, but that's easy. Now we're going to do this thing called the clevis. And the clevis is incredibly important because it's what the knuckle rotates in. The clevis here, and clevis looks like this. And it's got this little hole here for a pin. That's what's going to keep it in. And it's got these little holes. So I'm apprehensive about cutting this so thin. So that's another reason why I got such a small table saw. But I suspect I might have to do this with the bandsaw. But anyway, the drawing is like that. So as you can see, there's a 0.55 indentation here for the 0.5 knuckle to fit in. A little bit of clearance. I could probably tighten that up a little bit. But getting this curve just right is going to be not so easy, and drilling this hole, it's all miniature. So there we go. So this is a big table saw, and when I use this big table saw and there's a small piece, I don't want my fingers near the blade. So I've got this. Every person who uses a table saw has one of these, right? And you just put the wood in there and you shove it through. Well, this is a really small table saw. So
from a model shop,
I made this so that when I'm using it, right? So now, the reason why I got this table saw is because I've got to make little pieces like that. And if I tried to do this on this table saw, it would just, you know, get thrown out of the thing. So now, this thing, it's like. Now, this is a small table saw, but it can still cut your finger off.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why we've got to be really careful. So this is the angle guide. I'm going to put this in here like this, and I'm going to move it through like this, and okay, and then I can turn it off.
I love it.
And then I've got one of these. Now that's exactly how I made these little cubes. These are 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch cubes. And this, what?
It smells
Like s'mores? Okay. So you're a woodwork lover. That's awesome. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this thing.
What did you do?
Okay. How do you make it? Well, I'm glad you asked. So it's got to be made in such a way
I bumped into him.
that
And he apologized to me.
it holds one of these, right? Because that's the whole thing. I mean, this device has a little cube in there, and it rotates in all the different ways. So that's the whole point, right? So now I've got to make one of these. So now, if I had a really tiny bandsaw, I could do this easily. But come this way, and I'll show you the special tools that I have. Using these is almost an art form because you really have to line it up just perfectly. Now I'm going to put my nail here, my fingernail, and I'm going to hold this against my nail.
Why do you also have a mini crowbar?
A mini crowbar? Because sometimes I've got to pry small stuff. All right, so here. Because the frequency of the sound as it goes up, that's what makes it sound higher. Now, certain software you can buy enables you to speed things up, but it keeps the tone the same. This is called a coping saw, and it's called a coping saw because you can cope around corners. So see, now I have to cut this way. So I'm going to put this in straight, but then I'm going to start turning it. I got to be really careful.
Yo, is this a turbo steel one?
No, that's those are the aluminum filings from off of the machine tool. That's worth some money right there.
And do you recycle it?
Yes, absolutely. So see, now I'm cutting horizontally. Got to be really careful. I'll just cut the whole thing off.
So to make all of them, it's really time consuming.
Yeah. You really got to love it.
And then that would have had a few minutes, right?
Okay. So now, I have that now. Okay. Careful, careful. Yeah. So I want to drill a hole right through the center of this. So It would be nice if I had a better pen. Okay, so there's a line. And another 45-degree angle gives me, so it's lined up. And now, down Freddie Brown. Okay. And then finally, I need a 1/4-inch bit. 1/4 inch. Open it up. Close it down. I mark it. These are not 45 degrees. These are from corner to corner. Like that. Like that. So it's marked. Shove it back in the machine. It's really nice to have one of these. This time I'm going to do a better job of lining it up. I need to take my time. And one good technique is to turn it on and have the blade touch. Down for the ground. And then
Voila! Wood glue.
wood glue. Here's my 1/4-inch dowel. 1/4-inch dowel. Here it is. Now, this is a nice tight fit. So when I glue it on, I've got to be really quick, because I shove it in there, and then it tightens so quickly that if I'm not careful, I don't get it down all the way. See, it's already tightening. And there we go. Okay. So, there you go. Voila. It's a little sticky. So one of the operations was putting this ring, the ring that holds all the hinges, affix it to this. And so now the next thing I'm going to do with this all together is mount all the hinges. I'm going to mount these hinges with this all put together, so that when it all gets back together, it'll close correctly. Okay, so now this goes in here, and this should go in perfectly. I'm going to use the screws that came with the hinge, and I may need a different drill bit. Let's see. Oh no, that's going to work pretty well. Nice. I love it when a plan comes together. That looks like some sort of medieval something. A device of torture. So here's a critical moment in the development of this device. I have it all mounted, I've got the hinges on, and now I've got to make the final cut to that ring. So I've got this really, really thin saw, which is awesome. And I'm just going to go in here now and cut it. I've already cut the other two sides. So when I cut all the way through, this thing will open up like a flower. There, I can feel it, I'm all the way through. All right, the moment of truth. Hey, look at that. Oh, I hadn't cut all the way through, so it broke a little bit.
Oh,
It's
wow.
okay. So that that's everything that we wanted. And now we just have to install the mechanism. All right. So that's it's pretty cool. Okay, so we're getting close to the final assembly. I have this ring now to put on. And in order to assemble this, we've got to get the height just perfect. And so I've got to put in all these little connecting rods. Those are great. I have. Okay, so what it's going to do when it's all together is when we give this a half turn, you see how it all opens up in unison and closes in unison. But it won't really work until we have the ends of these nuts on. You know, you'll get them working more or less. So anyway, but we know, but this shows us exactly how big to make this. Okay, so the very next thing is to put on all the nuts to really put the linkages together. So we cut these little pieces out of dowel and we drilled in a 1/4 inch hole. You stick it on like this. There's one. These are like nuts. There's two. Well, that one's kind of loose, but we'll drill through it soon. There's three, and the way we keep them on there is by drilling a hole. This hole is perfectly matched to a screw that we have. Like that. And then self-tapping screw. Stick it in there like that. And there we go. Like that. That's one. There we go. Okay. So here's everything. That's the closed position, open position. Perfect. Okay, so the next thing is to mount this, to do the electronics, to give it a paint job, to make the orb, to figure out how the orb gets back into here. So that we don't even have finished yet, but that is a fantastic feeling of accomplishment. To have this vision for so long and get it working like that, it works so well. Just give it a turn. We've got that bearing that we made, everything. And it's all out of wood, except this plastic piece. That's cool.